In this lesson, we're going to take a look at how we can utilize the MIB Texture Rotate node. So one of the things that is important to take note of is that with this MIB Texture Rotate node, this is not actually a node that is used to rotate any kind of a file texture per se. Instead, this is something that is able to actually rotate the direction of some kind of an anisotropic reflection or an anisotropic highlight. So let's take a look at what we have right now in this render. And you can see that we are using our glossy highlight material in order to get these blurred reflections. So with this blurred reflection material, or this glossy reflection material, let's go into the hypershade and expand the up and downstream connections so we can see exactly what we have plugged into this. So we've already seen how in the lesson dealing with this glossy reflection node, how we can actually start to give some kind of directionality to the horizontal and vertical streaks. So if I were to come in and set the horizontal to 0.003 and set the vertical streaks to something like 0.3 and save this for comparison, you can begin to see how we can start to introduce some streaking in this material as far as the direction in which these reflections are moved. Now what we can do is utilize this MIB Texture Rotate node to give us a lot more control over the final result, because you will notice that we do have some errors that occur right in this area. So let's take a look at how we can fix that. So let's go ahead and go over to the Mental Ray nodes, take a look down inside the Textures tab, and we're going to drop in the MIB Texture Rotate. Now this Texture Rotate node can be used by just simply middle clicking, dragging up into the glossy reflection, and we'll go to the Other tab. Now we've already seen in the lesson on the Ward material how we can use the Texture Rotate material, or this Texture Rotate node, to connect the U direction to the U direction in the specular highlight. So we'll do the same thing with the Glossy Reflection node. So we'll connect the U direction on this Texture Rotate to the U axis on the Glossy Reflection. And we'll do the same thing with the V axis. Now this Texture Rotate node won't work just by itself. What we also need to do is take a look inside this Texture Rotate node, go to the input, and make sure that we have a texture vector connected. So let's go down again to the Textures tab, drop in an MIB Texture Vector, and now this should work correctly. So let's compare what we have. We'll save this and re-render. And now you can start to see that things have changed a little bit. We've now actually started to introduce some kind of directionality with a little bit more control than what we had before. So what we can do now with this Texture Rotate node connected into the U and V axis is we can simply come in and begin changing this value. Now this angle goes from 0 to 1. So you can think of this as being 0 degrees rotation. This is a full 360 degrees rotation. So with that, if we wanted to rotate this, let's say 90 degrees, this would be 0.25, or a quarter of the rotation. So now let's actually just move this a little bit further, because it was 0.25 to begin with. And re-render. And now you can see that the streaks are angled a little bit differently. Now one of the things that is nice about using this Texture Rotate node is the fact that we do have the texture vector plugged into it. So you'll notice that we start to get some sort of odd anomalies that are occurring right in this upper area of the sphere. We kind of have this sort of odd distortion that's happening right in this area. So let's go to the texture vector, and with this we can actually choose the space in which this rotation happens. Right now, with it set to standard, we're rotating this streaking in world space. But we could also change this to where the streaking happens based on the object space orientation now. So by just changing that, let's save the comparison and re-render. And now we get something that has a bit more control to it. So now, instead of rotating the streaks based on the actual object, or rather the world coordinates, we're now going to rotate these based on the object's coordinates. And again, if we need to come in and change this at any time, we can always go back and just simply alter the angle. If I were to bring this all the way down to 0, we can now start to angle these streaks to where they run pretty much parallel around this sphere. So that's a look at how we can utilize this MIB texture rotate as a way of controlling the directionality of our anisotropic reflections.